Welcome back. Well, the Labour Party has voted down a call for nationwide inquiry into 3-decade-long crimes by Pakistan's grooming gangs who have sexually exploited and trafficked thousands of UK women. Gangs of men, often from Pakistani backgrounds, have targeted mostly white girls from home care and other disadvantaged backgrounds. These gangs have mainly operated in several English towns and cities, notably in Rotherham, Rochdale, Oxford, and Bristol, with as many as 10 separate inquiries being done, which have also led to convictions. In the past few days, Elon Musk has launched a social media campaign against the UK Prime Minister and Labour Party, accusing him of being complicit in the crimes of child sex offenders. As per Keir Starmer, Musk and company have been spreading lies and misinformation. Starmer has also been questioned for his role as the head of the Prosecution Service between 2008 and 2013 in Rochdale, where the agency was criticised for not prosecuting suspects between 2008 and 2009. Mr. Henry Bolton, media commentator, political and international affairs, joins us on the program to give his insights on what's going on over here. Mr. Bolton, appreciate you taking out the time and speaking with us. Well, it's one thing that Elon Musk has decided to talk about this and bring this into public domain through a platform that he's the owner of, which is X, formerly known as Twitter. But let's also talk about this problem. There was a mention for a very, very long time on social media that this is something which has been prevalent in the United Kingdom for very long, but did not get the due attention or its day under the sun as was expected. Why do you think that happened, and what are going to be the next steps for recourse, according to you?
Well, as you quite rightly say, this has been going on for years now. And indeed, I think every society and every country is going to suffer problems of this sort to an extent. The scandal here, if you like, the political sort of shenanigans that are going on at the moment are all because there is a lot of evidence. In fact, it's now proven that public officials, so politicians, local councillors, police officers, welfare workers, and so on, all were aware of what was going on, but turned a blind eye. They looked the other way. And as a result, they effectively facilitated and enabled it to continue rather than dealing with it. Now, there are two questions there, really, that come from that. And clearly, this is incredibly prevalent. You just named a few of the towns and cities involved, but there are 50 or so across the country where this has been going on. Now, the question, there is the first thing, why was this so prevalent? Why did people turn the other way? And how do we ensure going forward that it's not continuing as we speak, and that it doesn't continue into the future? So why did this occur? Well, there is a strong sense in the United Kingdom that multiculturalism has failed in the United Kingdom, and multiculturalism in the sense that you have numerous cultures living alongside each other, often in sort of geographical pockets, if you like, of people who have a different approach to society and norms and so on. For example, I spent 2.5 years in southern Afghanistan. And in southern Afghanistan, the reality is that men have a very different approach and perspective of women and how to treat women than we do here in the United Kingdom. And so when you bring people from a society like that, and I don't judge it, it's just different to our own, and you bring those people into our society without any effort at integration, you are going to have tension between different forms of normal behavior for those two cultures. And that, I think, has got a lot to do with this. I'm trying not to sort of be sort of, to say what is right and what is wrong. I mean, well, I will do. I will say, obviously, in the United Kingdom, we believe that women should not be treated as an underclass. We believe that they have equal rights. And indeed, we have laws to that effect. And we have laws with regards having sex with underage people. And all of those things have been violated by these gangs. So they are illegal, if nothing else. So, but we need to address the multiculturalism and the integration side of things. Then, why was it allowed to continue? Why did people turn a blind eye? Well, for a long time, because multiculturalism has been almost a sort of, a principle of the centre and the left in British society. And they have suppressed, and this is where Elon Musk comes in. They have suppressed through the media, through personal insults, through all sorts of, through more recently the rule of law. They have suppressed any expression of criticism or concern about these sort of things, because multiculturalism is the principle. And if you question that, then you become racist, you become nationalist, you become a Little Englander. And so the people have been, the officials concerned have been, I'm going to say, infected by these principles, and common sense and rationality have gone out of the window. Now, then we've got the problem of, how do we guarantee that this doesn't go forward? And that's the here and now problem in Parliament at the moment, because
you made a very, Mr. Bolton, you made a very important point. You said that multiculturalism has failed in the United Kingdom. Well, it's failed in a number of countries in Europe and around the world as well. A lot of the left-leaning governments have actually led to multiculturalism failing. But specifically in the United Kingdom, what factors would you attribute, this debacle to?
Well, it's a very interesting question, because it's just sort of grown over the years, almost out of nowhere. I think in the United Kingdom, though, we have a particular dynamic and driver behind it, and that is that going back really to the 60s, if not before, and indeed our relationship with India. Not specifically, but India and other parts of the world that we used to have a governing role over. There was then this sense that Britain should not have done that. Empire was bad. That we need to make up for that. We need to open our doors to other cultures. We need to sort of repay the harm that the left and the centre of politics say that we've done. And so we have sort of had this guilt conscience, or parts of British society have had this guilt conscience. We see it particularly with the West Indian population who came here, and sort of why weren't they treated better, and so on. So people like myself, I'd like to think I'm a little bit more pragmatic about that. We live in the here and now. We can't change the past. We can all learn lessons, of course, but we all need to get along together and highlight what unifies us, what we have in common, rather than what divides us. And we need to have a meritocracy approach to public service and society, rather than one based on identity and whether or not somebody says that their race, their religion also was victimized in the past. So I think that legacy has had a lot to do with it, not in reality, or not in a practical sense, until it was politicized. And in politicizing it by the left and the centre to gain traction, I think it's actually become embedded. I think it's a very complex thing. But going forward, the answer, for Parliament, or what Parliament needs to do, is convince the British people, all of the people living in the United Kingdom, because of course there are people of all ethnicities and all religions in the United Kingdom who are concerned about the safety of their daughters, and about general safety because of these sort of problems. So they want to be reassured that Parliament and the government understand the problem fully. They are acting to address it. And that's the discussion now that has arisen. And I have to say, with Elon Musk's assistance in highlighting it, because the present government is avoiding a national inquiry. You mentioned in your introduction that there have been about 10 inquiries. Well, there have actually, if you include criminal investigations, been a lot more, but many of them have not been empowered by law to gather evidence. Many of them were very specific to particular incidents, and none of them have looked at the systemic problems of the policies that have been enacted by governments for decades, how it is that we've had public servants, including police and prosecutors, who have been able to turn the other way when quite clearly criminal offences have been taking place. So we need that's a national problem, and it needs a national response. And that
Absolutely,
is the
sir.
discussion at the moment. And the Prime Minister has blocked the such a national inquiry.
Absolutely, sir.
He was-
Absolutely,
he
absolutely.
was
Let me also rope in other guests and get their opinion as well. Professor Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins us on the program. Professor Nalapat, what do you make of these gangs of men? They are often from Pakistan, although Elon Musk went on to say that they were Asians, to which, of course, Priyanka Chaturvedi rebutted him and said that they are specifically Pakistani and they should be called out as such. They have been operating in English towns and cities for 4 decades now. Do you think that this, ultra neo-liberal culture has often led to these crimes not being taken seriously? And what's happened in the UK because of these grooming gangs is a prime example of that neglect.
Look, I'd like to point out that multiculturalism is very different from multi-criminalism. And I think those who are clubbing the entire Indian subcontinent into one particular heading, and in fact the entire continent of Asia into one heading, are committing something which is not only insulting, but it's also absurd. I mean, for example, these grooming gangs, they're almost entirely Pakistani, but for a sprinkling of Bangladeshi. Why not have the spine to call them out? These are Pakistani and with a bit of Bangladeshi groups who are roaming the streets and becoming predators of our women. Why not have the spine to call them out? Why hide behind the cover of Asians? I mean, you're combining everything from let us say, from Jordan all the way to Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam and Taiwan, which is utter nonsense. So I'd like to say very frankly, the problem in the UK, this is a problem that is not there only in the UK, is there in Germany, is there in France, is there in the Canada, the US, in several locations. There are areas where the police are just afraid to go. They're afraid to go because they quote unquote fear violence. Now, the police are to fear violence. What on earth are you paying their salaries for? The whole idea is to ensure an atmosphere free of violence. And I'd like to say it's an utter libel, for example, on the Indian British community, because I don't believe any member of this community is in any of these grooming gangs at all. I mean, there are so many of them in the UK. I'd like to see somebody point out 10 of them if that are in these grooming gangs. This is utter libel, if I may say so. And this is a kind of catch-all phrase, multiculturalism. For heaven's sake, criminality is not culture. And so far as Afghanistan is concerned, yes, I've also been to southern Afghanistan. I've been among the Pashtun people. They have their own code called Pashtunwali, and they follow that code. It's very different from the code in India or very different from the code in Britain, but it's a code. Now, if you have people who are in a country and don't follow the code of that country, those people need to be called out. They need to be prosecuted. They need to be dealt with severely. And let's be honest, by calling it multiculturalism and we are doing tolerance and all that kind of thing, you're simply covering up the fact that you are too cowardly to take the action needed against these criminals. Unless you name them, they're Pakistanis, a handful of Bangladeshis. Unless you shame them, they're criminals. Unless you name and shame them, the communities in which they live are not going to do anything about checking this kind of horrible situation in their midst, in which their young and old and middle-aged, I'm sorry to say, prey upon young women. I've studied this. I've seen how they study the profiles of young women who come usually from single-parent families, usually where the other parent is a drunk or a drug addict, and then they win their trust, and then they convert these young girls, some not even in their, in their early teens, into drug addicts, into alcoholics, and do unspeakable things to them. And this is happening all over Europe. It's happening all over North America. Let's not kid ourselves. And the reason is, frankly, this ridiculous catch-all phrase, multiculturalism. Let me tell you one thing. The Indian American community, for example, has got probably the highest per capita income of any community in the United States or possibly in the UK. With the highest. They are to a model citizens. They keep the law, they observe the law, as can be seen. So very frankly, don't cop out by talking of multiculturalism. It's multi-criminalism, and any sort of criminalism, according to the codes of that country, need to be called out and punished.
Right. So, with Pete, before I go to Joyita Basu, what do you make of this? In between the period of 1997 to 2014, apparently 1,400 girls were in fact sexually exploited. They were drugged, gang raped, and sexually exploited. In fact, the police in this part has been severely criticized because they were found napping when it came to these cases. But the communities in this part, in one town, feel that there is a two-tier justice system that treats a lot of these ethnic minority communities very, very differently. And let's point out that there is only one ethnic community over here, Sumit Peer, which is under the radar.
Vinay, thank you for having me on your show. A very important show today. Look, if I can be candid with a few points. First of all, this is a 3-decade-old problem. It is speciality of Pakistani men from 18 to 60 years. First. Point number 3, the girls are as young as 9, 11, 12 and go up to 18, 20, 24. They keep on raping them perpetually for years. That is what is happening here. The girls are identified, they are shortlisted, then they are caught, videotaped, and mass gang raped for years to come. That is what this grooming gang is about. People who have been caught so far are all 99 or 98% of them are Pakistani origin men. It's a national sport in Pakistan. Highest porn in the world is downloaded in Pakistan. The highest number of rapes which happen in Asia happen in Pakistan. And 99% of them don't get reported, by the way. And let me give you another data of Pakistan. 90% of the male child in Pakistan is sexually abused. This is as per the Pakistan Human Rights Commission. Even if you go to buy the newspaper Dawn, which is the most reputed newspaper of Pakistan, when there are 10 cases of rape reported, 8 are with boys. It's a society where they are sexual perverts. There's something wrong in the DNA, there's something wrong in the mind. And when this problem has become a national problem, rather than calling out as a national problem, what did they do? They tried to sugarcoat it. They tried to sugarcoat it by gangs of Asia. Now, when you talk about the gangs of Asia, how many Indians are involved? No. How many Nepalis? How many Sri Lankans? How many Bhutanese? How many Thai? How many Singaporeans? How many Taiwanese? Answer is no. When you're 99% of the people are Pakistani descent, how are you trying to sugarcoat it? I'll tell you why they're trying to sugarcoat it. Let me be direct here. 66 of the Labour MPs are Muslims. Muslims live in ghettos. It's easy to get the Muslim vote. You don't want to be goddamn called out Islamophobic just to cover this heinous Muslim crime and shield this Muslim Pakistani perpetrators. I'm being direct here. I don't mince my words. You are trying to make the whole Asia's rapist. This is where my blood boils. How are you casting aspersions on you, my and other communities? I have so many Indian brothers who live there. Which Indian Hindu especially has been accused of this grooming gang? How many of Indian Hindus have been accused of raping a minor there? Finding a white girl. Imagine a 9-year-old girl being raped by a 60-year-old man. Perpetually, you have to be mentally diseased and sick. And more diseased and sick are the people who are trying to cover them because you want to keep your 66 Muslim Labour MPs and want to get their vote. You don't want to be seen calling Islamophobic. You don't want to be seen going against Islam and Muslim. So what have you chosen? The fact is that 37% of the population of England is British white. Another 7%, 17% is the people who have come from other regions, they are white. 27% is Asians and there are other minorities which live in there, right? So what you are trying to do, rather than looking at a problem where the young women or the young girls, I'm sorry, in Hindi we call them kids, young kids are being tortured and being raped mercilessly by this barbaric men who believe in life after death and what all not. And let me tell you, as per some mullahs, I don't know, they say that when you rape a girl, it becomes an Islamic property. Even some mullahs have this thought process. So when these kind of heinous crimes are happening, when Elon Musk brings it up, when the conservatives want you to at least talk and have a query, Mr. Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer decides to block it, use his brute majoritism. No, I don't want even an inquiry to happen. I don't want the truth to come up. You know why, Vineet? Because when the truth will come up, you will be astonished to say the cases maybe 10 times, 20 times, or 100 times. Only a few cases get reported in rape. That is a universal fact. And in a country like Pakistan today, where 90% of the male child is sexually abused, these are the people who are running this grooming gangs. You can imagine what can be the quantum of the damage, and then you have your 66 Muslim MPs who get you Muslim vote and you're in power. So to shield that, it's a similar situation what was happening in Canada. Canada, it was Jagmeet Singh who was putting this mask tape on Theodore's mouth. Now here it is the Muslim vote and the Muslim MPs and the Pakistani ghettos which are asking Keir Starmer to shut up. Sorry, I have to be direct. But it is your politics. But if you goddamn come and say it is Asian grooming gangs, that is where my objection is. How the hell you name me, my community, and mind, law-abiding citizens from India and everywhere in Asia who are doing their work there? How many of us have been named? How many Hindus have been named in this grooming gangs? No, nothing. Call spade a spade. You are betraying your community for your votes. That is right, sir. You're betraying your community for your votes and you are now accusing the world. So are you telling me people of my country are rapists? Are you telling me my diaspora?
All right, let's also get Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, into this conversation. Joyita, in fact, Elon Musk has not minced his words. He said that Keir Starmer was deeply complicit in the mass rapes in exchange for votes, and that is what the inquiry should be all about. Where do you stand on this?
Well, first of all, it is frankly shocking that a country like the UK, which claims to be so many things, which actually their MPs stand up in parliament and they lecture us Indians on, governance, how to run a democracy and so many other things. Then, the oppression apparently that we are carrying out in Kashmir and so many other things that they keep talking about, that they will come together and block an inquiry which is the basic. Do you think, if anything, God forbid, in India something like this was exposed, something like this that had come to light, you think any government, any ruling government would be able to ensure that such an inquiry is blocked? No, it will be not. It cannot happen. And it is not just the whole press here, the institutions here, the activists, the opposition, everybody will be up in arms that an inquiry must happen. We will be lectured from the US, and these same MPs who have blocked this inquiry, they will be saying, my goodness, what a slide down the scale of democracy, India is uncivilized, unfit. Frankly, all these words today sitting here as Indians, I am going to use for what the UK has become. It is a barbaric, uncivilized society. If you cannot ensure that your girls, your young girls are protected, and you allow these animals to run around, and the kind of stuff that we are reading, where a girl who was raped by all these men, she got arrested, her father got arrested, and these rapists were allowed to go. And what is this grooming gang? Why are we even talking about, grooming? This is not grooming, this is gang rape that is happening of underage girls. For God's sake. And what is this constant that they are talking about? Asian men. I saw, even I think 2-3 days back, I saw one of their leading mainstream newspapers talking about Asian men. As Professor Nalapat said, are we talking about from Japan to Jordan and, what Asian men are we even talking about? Say it, these are Pakistani Muslim men. Unless and until they are able to do it, sorry, you don't have a functioning parliament, you don't have a functioning government, you are a shame on the face of the democratic world.
Okay, all right, we've completely run out of time. Sumit wants to make a quick point. Sumit, quickly, please.
Is it untrue that these people, these so-called MPs, want a Sharia law there? Is it untrue they are running Sharia courts there? Is it untrue they have been on record on various occasions saying we want to convert Britain into a Sharia land? Now, what is happening? Are you getting Sharia really? Are you helping Sir Keir Starmer to get Sharia implemented by giving them intellectual cover fire and using your brute majority to suppress a big national issue and cause which is bothering the girl child, which is concerning the girl child? Is this what your politics is all about? That is the question which people of England should ask.
Okay, all right. I'm going to give an opportunity. I'm going to give 10 seconds to Mr. Bolton as well. He wanted to make a point. Mr. Bolton, sir, we have completely run out of time, but I can see that you want to conclude with some points. Go on, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, I totally agree with the point about Asian. If you don't define the problem accurately, then you're not going to be able to come up with a correct solution. Of course, these are Pakistani Muslim men. And people like myself have been using that terminology on social media and in interviews. The problem here, as you quite rightly identify, I think one of you, that the government, the present government is, and frankly the Conservative government before, were absolutely terrified to call out Pakistani Muslims because, for two reasons. One is that they don't want violence with that community, and the second is that they want the votes of that community. And this is moral cowardice. This is a failure of moral integrity, and this is what the discussion is about in the UK at the moment. I'm 61 years old, and I in my lifetime have never seen such tension in society over such an issue. I don't know where it's going to end, because the Labour government has such a majority in the House of Commons, although they're not popular in the country, that there is very little political room for manoeuvre. And that's why Elon Musk's intervention, although not always accurate, has been helpful, because it's highlighted it to a new level. And we can use all the traction we can get. And I thank you for those of you who've been criticising us. I'm ashamed at the moment to be British. This is the first time in my life that Britain has looked so bad on the international stage. As I've always wanted to believe we are a beacon, a flawed beacon, but nonetheless a beacon for the rule of law and justice. And we are failing our own people in such an extreme way, in that sense that, I do feel shame. I'm not responsible, but and I'm trying to deal with it, but it's a major problem. And
all right, sir.
There's a lot of tension here, but thank you very much.
Mr. Bolton, I appreciate your candor, and I appreciate the points that you have made, and it's not easy to admit the failures of your own government, but those are the facts that we debated today. I would like to thank all of you for being a part of this immersive and extremely important conversation.